In the deepest folds of the earth, where sunlight has never touched and pressure crushes like the weight of forgotten centuries, there lies a silence so profound it begins to speak. This is not the silence of peace, but the voice of something ancient, older than empires, older than gods, older than memory. Here in the Mariana Trench, the sea does not simply exist, it dreams. It murmurs and groans and howls, clicks and thuds, like a cathedral of lost languages reverberating through blackened halls. Scientists call them the bloop, the Julia, the upsweep, sounds too low, too vast, too alive. Each one a puzzle without a key, a breath without a lung, a whisper without a mouth. And yet, long before sonar and submersibles, long before maps named this chasm, the ancients knew. They carved their fears into driftwood and coral. Break time equals 0. 25s, /, they told stories of dragons that wept in the sea's womb, of gods chained beneath the ocean floor. For them, the trench was not unknown, it was sacred. To understand the Mariana Trench is not only to descend into its depths, but to journey backward through myth, science, and the trembling edge of human curiosity. We begin this odyssey not with what we know, but with what we fear. Not with light, but with shadow. Let us begin. Stopwatch equals 0.1. Beneath the waves that shimmer like molten silver under the moon's gentle gaze, the earth hides its final frontier, a place not of light, but of pressure, shadow, and unknowable depth. The Mariana Trench is not merely a crack in the crust. It is the Earth's unblinking eye, forever watching in silence. It stretches over 2,500 kilometers along the floor of the western Pacific Ocean, east of the Mariana Islands, where tectonic plates collide in an eternal, grinding ballet. At its deepest point, Challenger Deep, it plunges nearly 11 kilometers beneath sea level. There, the pressure is over 1,000 times what we feel at the surface, a crushing force that would collapse steel as if it were paper. To the ancient Polynesians, who crossed the Pacific guided only by stars and birds, this trench was a sacred wound in the sea. They did not name it, but they revered its power. It was a place where the ocean swallowed not only canoes, but souls. Their chants spoke of sea spirits with arms of salt and eyes like lanterns, who lived far below and called out in storms. These were not metaphors, but warnings. Centuries passed before anyone dared to measure the trench. In 1875, the HMS Challenger, a steam-assisted Royal Navy ship converted for science, cast its lead-weighted lines into the unknown. With cautious patience, the crew recorded the trench's first known depth, 8,184 meters. The exact place would later be named Challenger Deep in its honor. It was a moment of profound humility. For all our empires and cathedrals, we had barely touched the hem of the Earth's robe. Later, technology grew bolder. In the mid-20th century, sonar replaced rope and echo replaced lead. American and Japanese missions sent sound down like messengers, waiting for its return. These soundings revealed a terrain more alien than any imagined Martian landscape. Peaks and valleys, ridges and trenches, volcanic scars and sediment-filled canyons, each recorded with mathematical precision, but still shrouded in mystery. Then came the descent. On January 23, 1960, the Bathyscaphe Trieste, a strange vessel shaped like a bullet and built like a fortress, carried two men, Jacques Picard and Don Walsh, into the abyss. As they dropped deeper and deeper, the outside world turned to ink. The pressure mounted until a window cracked, yet the men pressed on. At 10,911 meters, they touched the trench's bottom. They reported a lunar landscape, lifeless and still, yet with a small fish gliding by, as if to remind them that life yields to no depth. But maps only reveal form, not meaning. The shape of the Mariana Trench is known to satellites now. Multi-beam sonar has charted its furrows and folds like the lines of an ancient palm. Autonomous underwater vehicles glide through its void like glowing fish of metal and code. We know where it begins and ends. We can model its walls in 3D. And yet the trench keeps its heart closed. It is the paradox of exploration. The more we see, the more we realize we do not understand. Beneath the mapping and measurements lies a realm untouched by sunlight since the world began. There, in eternal darkness, strange things stir. And sometimes, they are not silent. In 1997, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recorded a sound in the South Pacific. A low, powerful, almost organic noise. It rose in pitch, echoed across thousands of kilometers, and defied categorization. The scientists named it the bloop. Some thought it was ice cracking. Others whispered of unknown creatures, colossal beyond comprehension. The sound's origin? Not far from the Mariana Trench. Mapping is not knowing. Coordinates do not replace myth. A line on a chart cannot capture the feeling of standing above that abyss, staring into blue that turns to black, then to something beyond even black, a shade no eye can see. The Mariana Trench has been measured, but it has not been claimed. It exists outside the realm of ownership and above the reach of dominion. It is pure, sovereign mystery. And so, the journey downward begins not with distance, but with reverence. To descend into the trench is to enter Earth's cathedral, its most sacred hollow. And here, even silence has its own geometry. In a world defined by silence, sound becomes sacred. The Mariana Trench, entombed in darkness and pressure beyond imagining, is not as still as one might believe. From its unfathomable depths, the sea sometimes speaks, not in waves or winds, but in murmurs and moans, shrieks and sighs, haunting tones that slip through the water like secrets desperate to be heard. In the year 1997, a sound broke through the silence of the deep and sent ripples through the minds of oceanographers. Detected by hydrophones over 5,000 kilometers apart, the noise rose rapidly in frequency, low and thunderous, echoing across the Pacific. The scientists called it the bloop. At first, they suspected it might be the creaking of ice calving off Antarctica. But the sound was too powerful, too strange. It came not from the poles, but from somewhere near the Mariana Trench. The sound was organic, at least that's what it seemed. No machine, no seismic event, no iceberg grinding against another could account for its signature. It was, some believed, the call of an enormous creature, larger than any whale known, larger even than belief would permit. But no such creature was ever seen. Only the sound remained, looping endlessly in digital archives, daring anyone to explain it. It was not the only voice from below. Over the years, the ocean has offered up a lexicon of unknown sounds. The Julia, recorded in 1999, long and mournful, like a whisper stretched across time. The train, a mechanical screech that seemed to roll endlessly like steel on steel. The whistle, sharp and fleeting, vanishing as soon as it came. Each had its own fingerprint. Each defied easy classification. Some scientists suggest these sounds come from deep-sea geological activity, earthquakes echoing through underwater caverns, magma shifting in the planet's throat. Others point to icequakes, strange sonic bursts created when frozen masses under immense tension snap and shift. These explanations comfort us. They give us vocabulary. But the sounds persist. And some remain entirely unexplained. Imagine, at the bottom of the trench, in a void where no light survives, something stirs. Not a beast from myth, perhaps, but something ancient nonetheless. Perhaps life so alien, so adapted to the crushing cold and darkness, that it is invisible not only to our eyes, but to our minds. It does not breathe air. It does not see as we do. It does not need the surface. But it can call out. And sometimes it does. There is poetry in the ocean's cries, strange music rising from places never touched by sun. The hydrophones that the Pacific are like ears pressed to the floor of a sleeping cathedral. Most nights, there is only the hum of currents, the distant echo of a passing whale, the static whisper of tectonic sighs. But then, something else. A rumble. A moan. A sound that does not match any known frequency, like a ghost brushing past the edge of a dream. And the most unsettling thing? These sounds often come from where no life should exist. At depths where even microbial life is rare, where temperatures hover near freezing and the pressure is enough to warp titanium. And yet, sound carries. Meaning, perhaps, travels with it. Mariners once said the ocean was alive, its moods changing with the moon. They told stories of sea serpents and krakens not because they were foolish, but because they listened to the sea. And it spoke. In the age of satellites and sensors, we still don't understand what makes the trench sing. We've charted its depths, but not its voice. We've heard its sounds, but not their purpose. Perhaps it is Earth dreaming. Perhaps it is warning. Break time equals 0. 25s, / or perhaps something waits below, unseen and timeless, its song echoing up to us, reminding us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. There is a silence at the bottom of the world, yet life endures within it. In the abyss of the Mariana Trench, where pressure exceeds 1,000 times that of the surface, where temperatures flirt with freezing, where no light has ever penetrated, creatures not only survive, but flourish. This is not life as we know it, sculpted by sunlight and breeze, but life forged in darkness and silence, shaped by pressure and time. Here, existence is a miracle performed daily. At the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point of the trench, organisms live beneath 7 miles of crushing water. It is a realm without photosynthesis, where energy is not gathered from sunlight, but from chemistry. Where bacteria feast on hydrogen sulfide and methane, converting poison into life. One such inhabitant is the amphipod, a tiny crustacean with a translucent shell. Some varieties, found only at these depths, possess a strange resilience. Their cell membranes are laced with pressure-resistant proteins, and their skeletons, if they can be called such, are reinforced by aluminum scavenged from the water. Aluminum, not calcium. Evolution has found another path. Then there is the Hadal snailfish, an ethereal creature discovered in recent years. With pale, gelatinous skin and wing-like fins, it glides through the blackness like a wisp of thought. Its bones are soft, its organs adapted to withstand immense pressure, and its movements unhurried, as though time itself slows down this deep. What is most extraordinary is not their form, but their persistence. These animals live in what should be a void, yet they feed, reproduce, drift, and die in the hidden valleys of the seafloor. Some harbor symbiotic relationships with bacteria, relying on chemosynthesis near hydrothermal vents. Others graze upon marine snow, organic detritus drifting from the upper layers of the ocean, a slow rain of the dead feeding the dark. And still, new species are discovered with every dive. Mysterious jellyfish that flicker with bioluminescent pulses. Sea cucumbers with translucent bodies and glowing frills. Microbes locked within rocks, dormant for millennia. They live without light, without heat, without air, yet they endure. Their very survival rewrites our definition of life. One might ask, how is such life possible in a world so hostile? The answer lies in adaptation beyond imagination. In deep-sea trenches, natural selection has sculpted biology into quiet resilience. These organisms are not primitive remnants, but refined survivors, creatures honed not by speed or size, but by surrender to the deep's immutable rules. There is a lesson in their stillness. In a world of noise and haste, they remind us that life does not need to be loud to be profound. They live outside of time, outside of sunlight, in a place humans cannot walk unshielded. Yet their hearts beat, and their stories continue, far below our feet. Perhaps most humbling of all is this: we have barely begun to understand them. Each expedition into the trench yields new surprises. A new creature, a new behavior, a new defiance of what we thought biology could be. The deep sea is not barren, it is simply patient. Its mysteries are not extinguished by light, but hidden behind layers of silence and pressure. To explore the Mariana Trench is to step backward into time and forward into possibility. It reminds us that life's most astonishing chapters are often written in the margins, in places too dark to see, too deep to touch. In the abysmal dark where sunlight dares not wander, a different kingdom reigns. It is a dominion of silence and pressure, of blackness thick enough to suffocate thought. Yet even here, where the weight of the ocean crushes all, life flickers. Strange, defiant life. Life that was never meant to be seen. The Mariana Trench, stretching over 1,500 miles like a scar across the ocean floor, is not merely a geological rift. It is a biological anomaly, home to organisms that defy logic and rewrite our understanding of survival. Here, temperatures drop to freezing, oxygen is scarce, and pressure can reach over 1,000 times that at the surface. Yet the abyss is far from barren. Among its inhabitants is the ghostly amphipod, transparent as glass, with a body designed not for beauty but for endurance. Unlike its shallow water relatives, this crustacean weaves through methane seeps and chemosynthetic bacteria with eerie ease. Then there is the hadal snailfish, the deepest living fish ever discovered. Its gelatinous body has no need for a swim bladder. The pressure would destroy it. Instead, its soft flesh and light bones allow it to glide soundlessly, like a thought through a dream. And stranger still, the xenophyophores, single-celled giants that thrive in the hadal depths. Some grow up to 4 inches across, larger than some multicellular creatures. Their name means bearing strange forms, and it is fitting. They build intricate structures from sediment and metal particles, almost like deep-sea architects crafting miniature monuments no eye was ever meant to behold. But even these known marvels are but whispers compared to what lies further. For every recorded species, there are dozens unseen. Remote-operated vehicles have captured fleeting images of translucent squids, shape-shifting jellyfish, and bioluminescent worms that twist their bodies into glowing knots. Their lights pulse like coded messages, flickering Morse from a world that speaks a different language. Bioluminescence is not a spectacle here, it is necessity. In a place where no light penetrates, organisms must become their own stars. Some use light to lure prey, others to confuse predators. A few flash brilliant bursts to attract mates in the liquid silence. Evolution has shaped their bodies into living lanterns. What's remarkable is not merely that life survives here. It is how it thrives through methods utterly alien to our surface sensibilities. Where photosynthesis fails, chemosynthesis begins. Bacteria feed on hydrogen sulfide from hydrothermal vents, powering entire ecosystems in what scientists call black smokers, underwater chimneys spewing minerals like smoke from ancient engines. These vent communities function without sunlight, without the rules that govern terrestrial biology. They are closed loops of energy, symbiotic partnerships forged in darkness. Tube worms with no mouths or stomachs harbor bacteria inside their bodies that digest toxic gases for them. Giant clams with reflective shells anchor themselves beside molten ridges. It is as though life found a loophole in existence and slipped quietly through. Break time equals 0. 25s /. In 2012, the unmanned lander Nereus sank into the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the trench, and captured images of microbial mats growing along the seafloor. These mats, composed of bacteria and archaea, may be among Earth's oldest life forms. Studying them is like reading a scripture written before the first continents rose. And still, we are haunted by what we do not understand. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones detected the bloop, a mysterious ultra-low-frequency sound of immense volume, traced roughly to the trench's vicinity. Though many have argued it was caused by ice quakes or tectonic movement, the possibility remains that it was biological. Something large. Something unknown. In recent years, other deep-sea sounds have emerged: slowdowns, upsweeps, and unexplained metallic bangs. Break time equals 0. 25s /. The ocean speaks, but not in words. These sounds lack rhythm or pattern, yet are too structured to be dismissed as noise. They echo through the trench like the breath of some buried titan. And so we wonder, are these merely echoes of shifting tectonic plates? Or voices of life forms whose biology and intent lie beyond our comprehension? To gaze into the Mariana Trench is to stare into Earth's subconscious. It is a reminder that the known world is shallow and fleeting. Beneath our ships and satellites lies a hidden oceanic cathedral, a cathedral lit not by fire or sun, but by organisms that carry light in their blood. Their organs, their instincts, their very bodies shaped by forces too ancient to name. One day, we may send better machines, better lights, better sensors. But no technology will strip away the poetry of that depth. The creatures of the trench are not just biological puzzles. They are living riddles from the beginning of time. As we ascend from these depths, as our submarines rise and pressure fades, we carry with us not certainty, but awe. For the deeper we dive, the more we are reminded that Earth is not fully ours. It never was. The trench keeps its silence, keeps its sounds. And still, something calls from below. Long before satellites traced weather across the sky, before robots mapped the Martian surface in dusty arcs, there were men who looked not to the stars, but down. Down into the heaving blue. Into the impossible silence beneath the sea. To descend into the Mariana Trench is not simply to go downward. It is to defy the instincts etched into our bones, the fear of drowning, of pressure, of dark. It is to build a vessel that must become both sanctuary and shield. Not merely from water, but from the weight of the earth itself. In the beginning, there was Trieste. A bathyscaphe, part submarine, part balloon, engineered in the 1950s by the Swiss visionary Auguste Piccard and later acquired by the United States Navy. It was unlike anything built before. A steel sphere, suspended beneath a massive float chamber filled with gasoline, chosen not for fuel, but for its low density and incompressibility. In 1960, Trieste made history. On board were Lieutenant Don Walsh and oceanographer Jacques Piccard. Together, they descended nearly 11,000 meters into the Challenger Deep. It took nearly 5 hours to reach the bottom. Outside, the pressure exceeded 1,000 atmospheres. Enough to crush any ordinary vessel like paper. Yet they endured. Encased in a steel sphere barely 2 meters wide, with walls over 5 inches thick, they peered into a seafloor no human eye had ever seen. The sand was pale, the water still. And though visibility was poor, they reported seeing a flatfish. Proof, perhaps, that even here, life had claimed dominion. Then they rose. 7 hours up. 7 hours of slow escape from the grip of the deep. They had touched the trench, but only briefly. The descent was a whisper. The ocean kept its voice. Decades passed before another crewed mission returned. In 2012, film director James Cameron descended solo in the Deep-Sea Challenger. His vessel was a technological leap forward, slimmer, faster, bristling with LED lights and HD cameras. He stayed longer, collected samples, filmed footage. But even he, surrounded by electronics and reinforced syntactic foam, described the experience not as conquest, but communion. It was, in his words, a place of utter isolation, and yet a place of connection to something ancient. These vessels are more than machines. They are extensions of the human imagination, bulky dreams made buoyant. Their walls must hold not just against pressure, but against panic. Inside them, time distorts. Movement slows. Heartbeats grow louder than propellers. There is no window to open, no air to breathe, but what you bring. And outside, nothing familiar. No fish you recognize. No sun. No horizon. Only blackness pressing in from all directions, soft, yet infinite. To sit in a trench-going submersible is to become a thought inside a shell. You are a mind encased in steel, drifting between gravity and grace. Yet machines alone cannot explain what the trench holds. They are our translators, but the language they read is ancient and strange. Some instruments detect tremors that seem rhythmic, almost deliberate. Some sensors pick up sonar echoes that never return in the pattern expected. Lights flicker in patterns beyond any known bioluminescent pulse. In 2014, a Chinese lander detected a low-pitch hum sustained for over 20 minutes, unexplained, unduplicated. Not tectonic, not meteorological. Instruments heard it, but the water did not vibrate as it should have. The sound came and stayed, then vanished. The deeper we explore, the more our devices become less like eyes and more like whispers sent into the dark. We shout our questions in mechanical voices. Break time equals 0. 25s, / the trench answers, not in language, but in dreams. And yet, we keep building. In recent years, new submersibles, Japan's Shinkai 6500, the American limiting factor, have pushed further, staying longer. They bring back samples, footage, data. But they also bring back silence. For what they encounter cannot always be parsed into graphs. We can chart temperature, pressure, mineral content. But how do we chart mystery? How do we record the shape of a sound that has no source? Perhaps that is why we return. Not to conquer, not to mine, not to own, but to listen. And to be reminded that not all silence is absence. In the trench, silence is filled with weight. Not just the weight of water, but of time, of memory, of voices that came before us, and voices we are not yet equipped to understand. And so we build our vessels, bright eggs of light and steel, to drift inside a sleeping giant, hoping not to wake it, but to hear it breathe. In the hush of the deep Pacific, where water pressure could crush steel like paper and light dared not enter, humanity extended its ears into the unknown. Not with the crude devices of old, but with instruments refined by centuries of dreaming, devices whose purpose was not conquest, but comprehension. They were machines of silence, hydrophones, sonars, and deep ocean probes, sent down into the great blue hollow to hear what the eyes could never see. During the Cold War, amid the hum of global tensions, the United States Navy began deploying listening arrays beneath the ocean. These networks, known as SOSUS, Sound Surveillance System, were built to detect the silent footsteps of Soviet submarines. Yet, they captured more than enemy steel. They recorded voices from the deep, sounds that no vessel made, no animal known to science emitted. One such sound was the bloop. Detected in 1997 by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the bloop was an ultra-low frequency, powerful enough to be heard over 5,000 kilometers away. It rose in frequency, unlike the mechanical hums or tectonic rumbles familiar to marine scientists. Its source? Triangulated to a point near 50 degrees south, 100 degrees west. A remote location in the South Pacific, not far from the edge of the Mariana Trench's Dark Kingdom. Some speculated that the sound came from an enormous marine animal, one whose body could produce acoustic power orders of magnitude greater than any known creature. Yet, no whale, no leviathan, matched its signature. NOAA later suggested the sound may have originated from icequakes, large icebergs cracking and breaking apart. Still, many found this explanation unsatisfying. For the bloop was not alone. Other unexplained noises, Julia, slow down, upsweep, emerged from similar latitudes and similar depths. Each bore a spectral fingerprint distinct from known geological or biological sources. Each seemed to originate from regions of great trench or abyssal depth. And each whispered of phenomena still unnamed. To listen to the trench was to press one's ear to the breath of Earth itself. The hydrophones captured symphonies of creaking plates, hydrothermal vent eruptions, the distant roll of submarine landslides. But beyond those came pulses, rhythmic thumps, sonic reverberations that lacked an origin point, echoes without source. They weren't just heard, they were felt, vibrations in the spine of the Earth. In time, scientists developed more sophisticated devices, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, deep-sea dart buoys, and landers equipped with seismographs and acoustic modules. These machines became our surrogates in the abyss, descending miles below the surface to record the sounds that traveled through darkness and pressure. One such mission, the Okeanos Explorer, launched expeditions to map and listen to the Hadal zones. Its robotic ears recorded what sounded like pulses, regular, consistent beats, almost biological. These were not man-made, nor were they easily explained. Analysis yielded no matching profiles with known marine fauna. Some hypothesized deep-sea resonance or unknown chemical processes. Others whispered of more exotic possibilities. What makes these machines remarkable is not just their ability to detect sound, but their fidelity in preserving its character. Through them, we heard not just data, but texture, vibrations woven with meaning, tempo, and perhaps intent. A listener could almost sense personality in the pulse, could almost feel watched. And yet, for all their capability, even the best of machines are deaf to meaning. They bring back recordings, but not understanding. The abyss gives sound but keeps its secrets. In the echoes of the trench, we confront the limits of our perception, how much we do not know, and perhaps cannot know. To listen to these sounds is to feel ancient questions stir. Are we truly alone in the dark? Are we intruding upon a realm that was never meant to be charted? Or are we, by listening, fulfilling our species' oldest impulse, to seek, to question, and to feel wonder even in fear? They came not in armadas nor with flags, but in silence, those who dared to touch the skin of the abyss. Not conquerors, but listeners. They were scientists, aquanauts, deep-sea engineers. Souls drawn to the place where the world ends and something else begins. Beneath them stretched the Hadal Zone, an underworld named for Hades himself, where sunlight never strayed and pressure crushed down with more than 1,000 times the weight of air. Some arrived encased in titanium spheres, like the bathyscaphe Trieste. On January 23, 1960, Jacques Picard and Don Walsh descended over 10,900 meters into the Challenger Deep, the lowest known point of Earth's oceans. Inside their metal womb, they watched the dials spin and the darkness thicken. They did not hear the strange sounds that machines later captured, but they felt something else. A sense of presence. Of entering a cathedral not made by man. Later came the mere submersibles, the Alvin, and eventually remote and autonomous vehicles. Each venturing deeper, each returning with images, samples, and occasionally, anomalies. But some chose to go themselves. Among them, filmmaker James Cameron, who in 2012 descended alone to the trench's bottom in the deep-sea Challenger. He described a silence so profound it became a sound in itself. And when asked what he heard, he paused, as if reluctant to share. Those who return often speak of a strange duality. The trench is dead, and yet alive. Empty, yet aware. You hear nothing, but feel observed. One diver described it as standing in a room where someone just left. Another said it was like praying in a temple you did not believe in, but still felt reverence. They brought with them recorders, sensors, and hydrophones, hoping to isolate the strange audio patterns heard before, the bloop, the upsweep, the slowdown. But when you are present in that vast silence, the experience of sound changes. Sound is no longer vibration, it is memory. A trace on the skin of pressure. It seeps through the hull, through the bones. One researcher, Dr. Liane Kuroda, spent years cataloging sounds from the trench. On her first dive in the Western Trench, she reported hearing a distant series of pulses, 5 beats, always 5. She joked it was a Morse code from the Earth. But the pattern returned in later recordings, captured by autonomous bots far from her dive site. Not rhythmic like a whale, not mechanical like a sub. Just 5, always 5. Another explorer, Carlos Medina, recounted a different kind of encounter. Not a sound, but a feeling, an ache in his inner ear, like pressure trying to communicate. His instruments recorded no anomaly, yet he was compelled to abort the dive early. Upon returning, he described it as being inside a conversation between the ocean and something older. Some dismiss these tales as hyperbole or the tricks of isolation. Others whisper about trench acoustics, natural phenomena creating standing waves or resonant chambers that mimic patterns. But for the divers, explanation matters less than experience. To descend is to surrender. To accept that down there, in the stillness, the listener becomes the listened. Perhaps the most haunting element of these encounters is not the unknown itself, but its indifference. The trench does not respond to curiosity. It does not react to technology. It simply is. And in its being, it offers no explanation, no comfort. Just a mirror, a deep echo. In rare moments, divers reported flashes of bioluminescence far deeper than such life was expected, or sounds that changed pitch as if reacting to movement. No evidence, no correlation. Only impressions. Still they go? Still they descend. Not because they expect answers, but because the question matters. Who are we, if not the species that listens in the dark? That leans close to the hum of the cosmos and wonders what breathes in the black. Down in the place where sunlight is only a memory and gravity feels like a vice upon steel, the rules of the living world unravel. The Mariana Trench does not simply exist. It broods, in silence more ancient than speech, more powerful than myth. To descend into it is to approach the bones of the earth. At these depths, pressure does not merely crush, it transforms. Over 1,000 times the atmospheric weight at sea level presses in from all directions. It is a force that reshapes atoms, bends light, and flattens assumptions. In the Hadal zone, molecules arrange themselves differently. Biology becomes an art of impossibility. Here, silence is not absence, but density. It wraps around intruding machines, muffling their pings, swallowing their pulses. No human ear can listen directly in this realm. Even the strongest titanium hulls groan with protest. The pressure of silence is not merely physical, it is existential. What are we, soft-shelled creatures, doing at the bottom of the sea? In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron descended solo into the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in the trench. He piloted a sleek, lime-green submersible named Deep Sea Challenger, designed to endure the brutal load of more than 16,000 psi. The descent took over 2 hours. At the bottom, he stayed for less than 3. There, he found a plain of silt and solitude. No swarming creatures. No flickers of unknown intelligence. Just stillness. The camera recorded, the sensors blinked, and the man sat suspended between knowledge and mystery. Cameron's descent was not the first. In 1960, the Trieste, a bathyscaphe built in Switzerland and operated by the U.S. Navy, made history. Piloted by Jacques Picard and Don Walsh, it plunged nearly 11 kilometers to the trench's deepest reach. They saw a flatfish, they thought, later debated by biologists. They reported no sound. Only the eerie hush of a place that has never known thunder or wind. Pressure at this depth turns soft tissue into jelly, bones into powder. Human technology must be built not only with strength, but humility. One design flaw, one crack, one miscalculation, and the sea will take it whole. And yet, life endures. It does not defy pressure, it surrenders to it. Microbes cling to rocks rich with minerals. Amphipods with paper-thin shells wriggle through darkness. Xenophyophores, giant, single-celled organisms, bloom across the seafloor like alien flowers. Their existence is not just biological. It is philosophical. A quiet declaration that even under unthinkable force, life finds a way to whisper. The silence of the trench is not empty, it is saturated. Saturated with molecules that never reach the surface. With heat from the planet's bones. With secrets etched into stone. And sometimes with sound. Faint, rhythmic. Pressured into tight bands, traveling farther than on land, faster than through air. Break time equals 0. 25s /. What does it mean, Then, when a sound arises that should not be there, when a sonic signature pulses through a zone where no large organism could survive, is it a fluke of physics? Or something else? Some theorists speculate about acoustic shadows, waves bouncing within the trench's jagged walls, replaying themselves like a voice echoing in a stone throat. Others propose geological explanations, rocks shifting under intense pressure, producing microseismic events too delicate to register on surface instruments. But in the eerie constancy of certain pulses, timed, spaced, unwavering, many hear a different story. One that cannot be replicated in labs. One that might not even be humanly comprehensible. There is a kind of awe that arises when pressure and silence meet. Break time equals 0. 25s, / an awe that quiets the ego, that asks the explorer to listen more than speak. The trench is not ours to tame. It is ours to witness. In every descent, something more is gained than data. It is the rediscovery of humility. A reminder that, beneath all our towers and satellites, our civilization rests atop layers of ancient silence. The Mariana Trench teaches that pressure is not the end of life, but the birthplace of forms too strange, too fragile, and too profound to exist anywhere else. It whispers that silence is not void, but memory, coiled tightly under pressure. In the Hadal realm, where pressure crushes steel and sunlight is nothing but a forgotten myth, life does not flourish in spite of darkness, it evolves within it. The Mariana Trench, far from being a sterile void, harbors a world of improbable beings. Each is a quiet testament to time, pressure, and the will of existence. These are not the monsters of legend. They are not leviathans roaring in the deep, nor nightmares coiled in fear. They are slow pulses in the dark, transparent limbs adrift in blackness, lanterns of soft bioluminescence swaying like ghost lights in an eternal midnight. Among the trench's residents is the amphipod, a tiny crustacean that should not be alive here. And yet it thrives. With a body no thicker than a fingernail and a digestive system tuned to fragments of drifting marine snow, it endures pressures thousands of times greater than we can withstand. Even more remarkable are the xenophyophores, single-celled giants that spread across the seafloor like lacework spun by alien hands. These organisms build intricate shells from sediment, forming delicate chambers through which the currents sigh. Some are the size of dinner plates. One cell, vast as a world. The Hadal snailfish, perhaps the most iconic trench dweller, glides through the pitch-black sea like a translucent ribbon. Its body is soft, absurdly so, because hardness would shatter under pressure. Its bones are little more than cartilage. Its flesh almost gelatinous. It sees not with eyes, but with the vibrations of water. In 2017, researchers captured footage of a snailfish nearly 8,000 meters deep. It drifted, languid, like a ghost between worlds. Its tail undulated in slow rhythm, a heartbeat in the void. No predators, no prey, just presence. There are also creatures we cannot name, because we have seen them only once, or not at all. Shapes caught on camera for mere seconds. Glimpses of movement in the peripheral haze of the submersible's lights. Unclassified, unclaimed. These animals are not static. Their very existence rewrites biology. In them, proteins behave differently, folding in configurations suited to crushing pressure. Enzymes are resistant to cold and compression. Membranes are fluid, adaptable, alien. And then there are the lights. Small, blinking. Threads of bioluminescence weaving through the trench's ink. Some flash to attract prey. Some to signal mates. Some, we suspect, for reasons unknown. A private language spoken in photons. In 2016, a deep-sea expedition caught sight of what appeared to be a glowing orb, completely smooth and purple, hovering just above the seafloor. Scientists were baffled. It defied classification. Was it a jellyfish? An egg? A new species altogether? To this day, we don't know. This is the truth of the trench. Every life form here is a riddle. Some are never seen alive, only found washed up on shorelines or caught in deep-sea traps, their bodies distorted by ascent. The Hadal Zone does not release its children easily. And so we watch. We lower cameras. We gather sediment. We compare samples from trench to trench. And every time, we return with more questions. Could these creatures be the source of the unexplained sounds? Could vibrations mistaken for whale song be something else entirely? Rituals of mating, warning, or unknown communication? Or perhaps what we hear is not life, but the echo of conditions too alien for our minds to grasp. Sound, in the trench, is not merely noise. It is compression, geometry, adaptation. A language of pressure and silence. In the deepest abyss of Earth, life is not only possible, it is astonishing. Made of shadow, gelatin, glow, and resistance, it continues to rewrite what it means to be alive. In the long summer of 1997, far out in the southern Pacific Ocean, a sound was captured. Not by accident, but by design. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration had deployed an array of underwater microphones, hydrophones, to listen for the rumble of underwater volcanoes and the crash of shifting tectonic plates. What they recorded was neither volcanic nor seismic. It was not a crash, not a boom, but something more organic, more alive. A low-frequency gurgle rising quickly in pitch, like a bubble breaking free from the soul of the sea. They named it, almost playfully, the bloop. But this was no mere curiosity. This sound, recorded over 5,000 kilometers away, was louder than any known marine animal. It echoed across the deep in waves that defied the distance, picked up by sensors thousands of kilometers apart. A sound vast enough to blanket an ocean. Its origin? Somewhere near 50 degrees south, 100 degrees west, a lonely stretch of water far from trade routes and sonar ships. Not far, some noted, from Point Nemo, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, the furthest place from any land on Earth. A place where the sea is king and silence is deeper than anywhere else. What could make such a noise? At first, it was thought to be biological. But here was the problem. No known animal is large enough to create a sound that loud. Not the blue whale, ruler of the modern sea. Not even leviathans from myth. So speculation bloomed. Was it the sound of a creature yet unknown, lurking in the last black corners of the deep? A descendant of something ancient? Something prehistoric and hidden? A pulse from a being not made for light? Or was it, as some dared whisper, something artificial, a forgotten machine, long sunken and still alive in the underworld of the sea? Or perhaps, an echo not from Earth, but through it? Others turned to fiction. The coordinates, they said, matched eerily with the descriptions in Lovecraft's writings, where Relia, the sunken city of Cthulhu, was said to rest. Myth entwined with coincidence. A sea that dreams, a trench that remembers. In time, Noah suggested a more grounded theory. They proposed the bloop was likely caused by icequakes, massive icebergs calving or fracturing far beneath the surface of Antarctic waters. A rational, geological origin. And yet, something in us resists that explanation. Because the bloop didn't sound like ice. It didn't echo like tectonic plates. It had texture, motion, a kind of rising breath, as though something immense stirred from slumber. And it happened only once. In all the years since, through storms and silence, nothing has sounded quite like it. No follow-up signal. No recurrence. A solitary voice, raised and gone. This is the nature of deep ocean mystery. Data recorded, theories debated, but no proof. Only questions that hang like kelp in the current. Only stories carried by the sea. Perhaps the sound was geological. Perhaps it was biological. Perhaps it was something we have no word for yet. A category unimagined. But one thing is certain, it came from the deep. And the deep does not give away its secrets easily. There are times when the sea speaks not in roars or rumbles, but in hums. A soft, eerie vibration that threads through the darkness like the whisper of some submerged cathedral. Not thunder, not crash, not song, just a sustained, unknowable hum. A voice without language, a vibration without instrument. And so it was, beginning in the early 2010s, that scientists began detecting such a hum, not just from the Mariana Trench, but deep beneath the Indian Ocean and the South Pacific, from places untouched by light and rarely mapped in detail. It was not mechanical. It was not musical. It did not pulse in rhythm like a whale, nor crack like a shifting fault line. It simply persisted. Measured at around 0.06 hertz, this signal sat well below the range of human hearing. And yet, hydrophones around the world picked it up. Consistent, global, uniform. As if the ocean itself had become a great resonant bell, quietly ringing from its own abyssal heart. This strange hum came to be known as the Earth's hum, though it was never certain if the Earth was humming or merely translating something older through its liquid skin. At first, researchers thought it might be linked to microseisms, tiny, constant vibrations generated by the interaction of ocean waves with the seafloor. But that could not fully account for the uniform frequency and persistence. Others suggested it could be tied to magma flows, miles beneath the crust, or perhaps even the oscillations of the Earth's core. But no explanation fit all the evidence. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through trench and tide, mountain and plain. And though it could be detected by machines, it could not be heard. It lay below the realm of song and scream. It whispered to the stone bones of the earth and waited. It's here, once again, that the Mariana Trench returns to the story. For in that trench, deeper than Everest is tall, the hum seemed stronger, as if something vast beneath the surface was echoing this planetary frequency with its own response. A duet of trench and mantle. A harmony without human audience. Some researchers began to speculate. Could this be a form of natural resonance, like a musical instrument built by the architecture of Earth itself? The trench, with its narrow walls and immense depth, might act like a resonating chamber, amplifying frequencies from beneath the crust or from distant tectonic sources. But others saw it differently. To them, this was not a product of physics alone. It was a recording, perhaps even a form of communication. The ocean, after all, is the oldest memory on Earth. It remembers the birth of continents, the dying of stars, the silence before breath. What if the hum was the planet's oldest voice, still reverberating through the stone and salt of time? In ancient myth, sounds were sacred. The first syllable of the universe in Hinduism, Om, was a vibration. In Greek philosophy, the music of the spheres described a cosmos that sang. Perhaps the Earth, too, has a sacred sound. Not made for ears, but for bones and oceans. And so the hum continues. Machines still record it. Scientists still study it. But there is no agreement. Only questions, and a gentle pull toward wonder. It is said that to truly hear the hum, you must listen with stillness, not with ears, but with presence. Divers speak of it sometimes, of the moment, deep beneath the sea, when everything else goes quiet and only the pulse of the earth remains. A sound that is not sound, a language not spoken. There is a place, even within the Mariana Trench, where light does not go, sound does not return, and echoes die before they are born. It is not a cave, nor a chasm, but a vertical undersea cliff at the edge of the Challenger Deep, a formation so vast, so geometrically abrupt, that even sonar maps whisper around its edges. This is the Silent Wall, an underwater monolith shaped by ancient forces and known to few beyond the quiet discipline of abyssal cartographers. When early deep-sea expeditions pushed their sonar into this zone, they expected bouncing signals, reverberations of stone and sediment, the usual scatter of sonar waves. Instead, they received nothing. Not silence in the poetic sense, but a technical void, a signal that simply vanished, absorbed or redirected, never to return. For a while, it was thought to be a glitch, a mechanical failure. But the anomaly remained, even when new equipment was deployed from different vessels, different angles. Each time, when sonar reached that stretch of wall, it went blind, as if the sea itself were guarding something. The wall stands tall and smooth in some places, jagged and collapsed in others. It is not a ruin. There are no carvings, no steps, no doors. And yet its form is unervingly regular, as though once shaped by pressure more deliberate than erosion. A cathedral built not by hands, but by tectonics. Oceanographers call it a vertical lithologic boundary, where plate subduction has folded stone upon stone like pages of a geological codex. A natural formation, yes, but its acoustics defy logic. Where sound should reflect, it vanishes. Where sonar should map, it falters. Some have wondered whether the wall acts like a sonic cloak, bending waves around its surface, dispersing them into the trench's chaotic density. Or perhaps it is a massive absorption zone, made of material that eats energy. But no sample has ever been retrieved. No submersible has gotten close enough to scrape its face. It is too deep, too dangerous. More superstitious minds, among them sailors and deep-sea technicians, believe the wall is alive, not in the biological sense, but in some ancient, mineral sentience. They describe dreams after working near it, echoes that are felt, not heard, a pressure in the bones that follows them back to the surface. An encounter not with death, but with something watching from behind stone lids. There is a story, passed quietly in scientific circles, of an unmanned probe that once approached the wall using tethered cable and passive sonar. At 10,903 meters, it captured a brief clip of low-frequency sound, 6 seconds of layered harmonics, neither mechanical nor biological. Then, silence. The probe was never recovered. The sound, when played through a filtered waveform display, showed a pattern, symmetry not common in natural systems. Some say it looked like a language, others like a call-response loop, as though the probe had been noticed and answered. Skeptics dismissed the story. The ocean is full of strange signals, they argued. Reflection artifacts, random harmonics, cable tension distortions. But those who were there spoke less. And in their quiet was a kind of reverence. In other parts of the trench, life is teeming, strange fish with transparent heads, shrimp with iron armor, worms that live in boiling sulfur. But near the silent wall, even life grows scarce. The abyssal creatures do not drift there. The current's slow. The ocean folds inward, as if holding its breath. And perhaps that is what this place is, the breath held in the lungs of the world. A pause, a hush. The moment before the voice speaks. For all our satellites and sensors, there remain places on Earth that resist knowing. Not through hostility, but through stillness. Through sheer, quiet magnitude. The silent wall of Mariana is one such place. A veil of salt and pressure. A stone that forgets the shape of echoes. In Chapter 12, we drift further down, past the crumbling slopes beneath the wall, to the crater fields and geothermal rifts that form the hidden foundation of the trench, where the earth bleeds heat and time becomes liquid. Chapter 12. Where the earth bleeds fire, the rift beneath the world. Beneath the silent wall, where even sonar falls mute and gravity drapes heavy like a second skin, the trench begins to tremble, not in movement, but in heat. It is here, at the deepest seams of the Earth's crust, that the illusion of a cold, lifeless ocean shatters. For beneath the icy void, the planet's molten breath rises through fractures older than any mountain range. The hydrothermal vents of the Mariana Trench are not like those in shallower waters. They are black chimneys of metal and stone, rising like skeletal towers from the seafloor. They belch clouds of superheated fluid, dark as obsidian, rich in minerals drawn from the molten heart of Earth. The water here boils not at 100 degrees, but at 400, kept liquid by the crushing pressure of 11 kilometers of ocean above. Around these vents grow gardens of extremophiles, beings that live without sunlight, without oxygen, without mercy. Pale worms, blind shrimp, heat-loving bacteria with DNA unlike any known on the surface. Their world is not built on photosynthesis, but chemosynthesis, a web of life spun from poison. They feast on sulfur and methane, build skeletons from iron and lead, and drift through clouds that would kill most surface species in seconds. To peer into this realm is to glimpse an alien planet, not in a distant galaxy, but under our own feet. It is a reminder that life does not obey our expectations, that the fragile ecosystems of forests and skies are but one thread in a larger, more ancient weave. Marine geologists map the geothermal rifts that lace the trench's floor, zones where tectonic plates crack open like scarred skin, where basalt flows bubble slowly, where seismic murmurs ripple like dreams through molten corridors. These are the birthplaces of continents, the crucibles of mountain roots. Here, every second, the earth bleeds, and in that blood, rich in elements, pressure, and time, new minerals are born. Manganese nodules, copper veins, rare earths that may one day fuel technologies we have yet to imagine. But for now, they rest undisturbed, under blankets of darkness and silence. What fascinates scientists most is not merely the heat, but the symmetry. These rift zones pulse with a rhythm, thermal spikes in regular intervals, mineral outputs that follow curious seasonal patterns, as if the Earth itself breathed in slow, geological cycles. Is it life? Not in the way we understand it, but it is living undeniably, breathing, evolving, shaping its environment. Some speculate that if life began anywhere, it began here. Not in a sunlit tide pool, but in the dark fire of a hydrothermal vent, where amino acids could swirl and fold into the first whispers of consciousness. In the 1970s, when submersibles first filmed these vents, scientists were astonished not only by what they saw, but what they heard. The vents sang, not melodically, but rhythmically, waves of low-frequency sound generated by pressure changes, gas release, and boiling mineral slurries. These sounds, recorded at extreme depth, are now studied like ancient texts. Some mimic known geological processes. Others remain anomalies, unrepeatable, unresolved. They are not messages, and yet they feel intentional, patterned, as though something within the Earth's rift zones pulses with more than heat. In the heart of the trench lies a place known to some as the Cradle Rift. A jagged valley lined with overlapping vents, where geothermal energy is so concentrated that instruments often fail. Some probes lose control, spiral into the abyss. Others return, sensors scrambled, but memory cards intact, filled with sound files that defy spectrum analysis. These sounds do not echo, they vibrate through steel, bypassing water, traveling like tremors across time. Some believe these frequencies resonate with the trench itself, causing microscopic shifts, subtle quakes, gentle heaves in the seafloor's breath. A few researchers even dare to suggest that the trench is not passive, that it reacts, that the Earth, through this molten throat, listens. Whether metaphor or mechanism, it offers a chilling perspective. For what we thought was a grave, a sunless tomb for forgotten bones, may instead be a womb. Break time equals 0. 25s, / a place where beginnings still stir. The fire beneath the world is not chaos. It is continuity, the memory of the Earth's formation, still burning, still shaping, still dreaming in heat. It began as a vibration. Faint, low, rolling like thunder beneath the bones of the sea. In the summer of 1997, hydrophones placed deep across the Pacific Ocean, thousands of kilometers apart, picked up a single, unmistakable sound. A strange, organic-sounding bloop, echoing with rising frequency, lasting less than a minute. It was not the sound of a whale, not the groan of ice, not the call of a submarine, nor the rumble of tectonic rage. It was too powerful, too wide in reach, too unlike anything known. And when scientists triangulated its origin, it pointed near, eerily near, the Mariana Trench. For a time, the world listened. Newspapers whispered of leviathans. Oceanographers speculated on icequakes. Fiction writers imagined ancient beasts waking from slumber. Noah offered theories, cautiously, perhaps collapsing sea ice or shifting underwater volcanoes. But these were possibilities, not certainties. The bloop remained unsolved. And it was not alone. There were others. Julia, a ghostly hum heard across the southern Pacific in 1999, lasting nearly 15 minutes. The slow down, a descending tone stretching over several minutes, like the fading song of something ancient and immense. The upsweep, a repeating burst, seasonally strong since the 1990s. Still heard, still unexplained. These sounds are not random. They have frequency, pattern, intensity. They travel hundreds, sometimes thousands, of kilometers, and they originate from places where the ocean floor yawns deepest. The Mariana Trench is the deepest of all. And among its acoustic shadows, these sounds often cluster, like secrets murmuring behind a curtain of pressure and depth. It is tempting to assign them to nature's chaos, to collapsing ice shelves, hydrothermal vent activity, or distant quakes. But many of the sounds resist classification. Some have tonal shifts too sharp for geology. Others mimic biological vocalizations, yet emerge from depths no known creature can survive. In the field of bioacoustics, sound is signature. Whales, for instance, speak in clicks, moans, and pulses, each species with its dialect, each call with purpose. But the bloop, the upsweep, they match nothing. Not even the elusive, deep-diving beaked whales. And what of the whistle? A sound recorded in 2014, so clean and melodic that many believed it was mechanical. Yet it bore no watermark of man. No ping, no digital residue. Just a clear, high-pitched tune rising from the black, near Challenger Deep. Like a flute played underwater, then swallowed by silence. Some scientists speak cautiously of unclassified life forms, creatures without bones, or with organs for resonance rather than respiration. Others wonder if the trench acts like a natural amplifier, converting geothermal movements into acoustic expressions. Then there are those who tread further, suggesting the possibility of sound as language, not of creatures, but of the earth itself. That within these audio bursts lies a kind of tectonic syntax, the slow grammar of planetary memory. It's easy to dismiss, to return to spreadsheets, seismographs, and spectrograms. But when deep-sea microphones are lowered again, and the ocean's curtain parts just briefly, the strangeness returns. Another pulse, another tone, another whisper from below. There is something humbling in this. In knowing we have mapped the stars more clearly than our own oceans. That the trench still hums with voices we cannot place. That Earth, too, sings, not to us, perhaps, but through us. There is a place on Earth so deep that if Mount Everest were inverted and placed within it, its summit would still fall short of the surface by over 2 kilometers. A place where light does not merely fade, it is erased. This place is called Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in the world's oceans. Discovered in 1875 by the HMS Challenger, it was not fully sounded until nearly a century later. But the name endured, whispered with awe in the halls of oceanography, and etched into the maps where no man had ever been. This abyss lies within the southern end of the Mariana Trench, some 10,984 meters below sea level, though its exact depth fluctuates with measurement methods and time. Here, the pressure is over 1,100 times that of the surface. Temperatures hover just above freezing. Life, if it exists at all, is crushed into forms alien to human understanding. Yet humans descended, not many, but enough to write our presence into the geology of silence. The first was Jacques Picard, along with U.S. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh, in 1960. Their vessel, the Bathyscaphe Trieste, was a strange machine. A pressure sphere suspended beneath a gasoline-filled float for buoyancy, descending like a steel seed into the void. As they dropped for nearly 5 hours, the ocean wrapped around them like an ancient god, immense, invisible, patient. At 10,916 meters, they touched the seafloor. The sediment stirred like lunar dust, and in the haze, they glimpsed a creature, possibly a flatfish or a sea cucumber. Life, where none should be. They stayed only 20 minutes. But it was enough to prove that man could enter the Earth's most silent chamber and return. They heard no strange noises. But perhaps the trench was only watching. For over 50 years, no one followed. Then, in 2012, filmmaker and explorer James Cameron made a solo descent in the Deep-Sea Challenger, a torpedo-shaped submersible packed with high-definition cameras and robotic arms. He reached a depth of 10,908 meters and remained for nearly 3 hours, collecting samples, filming alien landscapes, and cataloging microbial life thriving in the black. His descent brought new questions. The trench was not empty. It was alive, not with beasts, but with extremophiles, xenophyophores, and polychaete worms that had adapted to the crushing depths. Some bore fluorescent organs. Others lacked eyes altogether. Many had never been seen before. More missions followed. Robotic landers. Autonomous vehicles. In 2019, deep-sea diver Victor Vescovo made multiple descents as part of the 5 Deeps expedition, mapping the trench with unprecedented precision. He discovered trenches within the trench, valleys inside valleys, each more forbidding than the last. And there, at the very bottom of the world, among shrimp-like amphipods and translucent snails, Vescovo also found something else: plastic debris. A candy wrapper, a fragment of polyethylene. Our signature, our shame. The abyss, it seemed, could be reached not only by courage, but by neglect. And the sounds? They continued. Hydrophones stationed nearby recorded new pulses. Some matched known phenomena, tectonic movements, or undersea storms. Others did not. Some speculated that the descent of humans had awakened something. Less a creature than a resonance. That our vessels, our propellers, our ballast drops disturbed the delicate pressure lines of the trench, causing it to respond with sound. Could the trench be communicating? Not in words, not in thought, but in frequency, in seismic syllables? Just as mountains echo when struck, perhaps the trench sings back when touched. What is known as this? The more we explore, the less we can claim certainty. The depths confound expectation. Each descent yields answers wrapped in new questions. Each sound opens corridors into geological myth. The Challenger Deep is not merely the bottom of the ocean. It is a mirror turned downward. A place where pressure is so great that time itself seems to kneel. A place that remembers, even as we forget. As we prepare for the final chapter, we turn our gaze not toward deeper depths, but toward meaning. What does it say about us that we journey to such places? What do we hope to find when we listen to sounds that resist explanation? And what becomes of a world when its most silent places begin to speak? In the end, it is not the depth that haunts us. It is the silence. A silence that moves, that breathes, that listens. For in the stillest regions of the earth, where pressure collapses bone and light dares not tread, something remains awake. The Mariana Trench is not merely a canyon carved into the ocean's floor. It is a record, a ledger of eons. A spiral staircase made not of stone but of time and pressure, spiraling toward a place where the past and the unknown live side by side. Every sound that echoes from its walls, whether the booming croak of the upsweep, the mechanical chirr of the whistle, or the descending spiral of the bloop, is not just noise. It is a signature. A call from something we do not see and cannot name. Some of these sounds will one day be explained. They may belong to deep-sea creatures using unfamiliar forms of echolocation. They may be tectonic plates rubbing in ways we have not yet modeled. Or they may be nothing more than the sigh of rocks compressing under the ocean's weight. But others may never yield to reason. And perhaps they are not meant to. For we are creatures of the shore. Our bones are built for sunlight. Our breath is drawn in air. Our minds evolve to understand the rustling of leaves and the movement of stars, not the murmurs of the underworld sea. And yet, we listen. Because deep in that listening, something ancient awakens. Not in the trench, but in us. A longing. A question without words. A yearning not to control the unknown, but to be in its presence. For there is something sacred in mystery, something pure in what cannot be dissected. When the trench sings, when it hums or sighs or groans, we are reminded that the earth is not a machine. It is an organism, a memory, a cathedral of forces older than life itself. And maybe, just maybe, the trench remembers the collision of the Pacific Plate, the collapse of continents, the weight of millennia settling like ash. Remembers creatures that no longer swim and the shifting songs of ice and fire. It remembers silence, and how it was never truly empty. So what do we do with these sounds? These strange messages from a place that has never seen the sun? We record them, we name them, we theorize. But we also, quietly, wonder. And in that wonder, there is something more enduring than explanation. Because the Mariana Trench is not just the deepest point on Earth. It is a threshold, a boundary between what we can know and what we must simply witness. It tells us that not all silence is absence. Some silence watches. And when the ocean speaks, in groans and pulses and songs without melody, we learn not only about the deep. We learn about the edges of ourselves. So let the trench whisper. Let it speak in riddles and resonance. For in those sounds lies the last true mystery of Earth. And to be human is not to answer it. It is simply to listen. Beneath 7 miles of crushing water, where no sunlight has ever reached, the Earth keeps its oldest secrets. Not carved in stone, not written in clay, but breathed through vibration, through tremor, through sound. We have mapped the stars more fully than we have touched the bottom of our own oceans. And in the Mariana Trench, the deepest wound upon the surface of our world, there are voices that rise from the dark. Some mechanical, some biological, some still unclaimed by science or reason. We came here searching for knowledge. But what we found was something older than answers, a presence. Not a monster, not a god, just the silent weight of time, folded into water and stone. And in this place, sound is not noise. It is memory. The groaning of the earth as it turns. The sigh of tectonic bones shifting beneath the sea. The ghost cry of creatures lost to extinction or yet to be discovered. Perhaps we will never understand the voices from the trench. But perhaps that is not failure. For in a world that seeks to name and own all things, the Mariana Trench reminds us that some truths are meant to be felt, not solved. To hear the deep is not to conquer it. It is to be humbled. To kneel before a silence more ancient than language. So the trench continues to whisper. And we, fragile creatures of the surface, continue to listen. Not because we expect it to explain itself, but because its voice, in all its mystery, reminds us that the earth is alive. And somewhere in the black, in the fold between pressure and patience, it still has stories to tell. Let us listen. Always.